Okay, so as you can see, we're not going to be writing too much on here. We're going to be doing just the basics. What I do expect from you guys, I don't expect you guys to know everything 1 to 10. And I put just this out. Like some of them I'm going to do just the 11th. Another I'm going to go like 12 and 13 because it kind of makes easy relationships. What I do expect you, and I want you to write this, I want you to be able to identify the top 5. Not necessarily in order, but if I gave a list of like 20 countries, you could circle the top 5 biggest countries in size. Not necessarily know them from 1 to 5, but at least be able to identify them. Does that make sense?
Is that gonna be
So we'll have tests. Yes, this will involve in. That's a good question. We're starting with bodies of water. This is actually kind of easy because how many oceans are there? 5. So the top 5 are all oceans. So that's pretty easy. Okay, what's the biggest ocean? Pacific. That dot does not work for me today. Okay, Pacific. From there, and here's my suggestion. On the back of your notes, I have another world map. As we're going through this, you might look at it, and it'll help you try to figure things out. So you can kind of go back and forth. Looking at the map, which ocean looks the next biggest after Pacific? Atlantic, I heard that. Excellent.
Arctic Ocean.
Southern Ocean.
Okay,
Gulf of Mexico.
so let's see here. We probably be this one right here. That's going to be Indian. Okay,
Borders of the Southern Ocean.
that's a good question. Okay, I'm going to do that. So we're left with the Arctic Ocean, which is up top, right? It's north of Asia, north of North America, and north of Europe. And the Southern Ocean is basically the area that surrounds Antarctica up to the southern tip of Australia, the southern tip of Africa, and the southern tip of South America. Which do you think is going to be number 4? Southern Ocean. Nicely done.
It looks like it's bigger than.
It does. It's weird how that's. Oh.
Have you noticed that Mexico looks the size of Alaska?
Well, the thing is, and you've hit on a very important point. This is a representation of something three-dimensional, right? When you put it in a 2D plane, maps typically make the very top a little bit bigger, look bigger, and the very bottom look very bigger. The things in the middle are the correct size. As you go away from the equator, the things look actually bigger than they are. It's just the way that the two-dimensional representation works. Okay, these are the biggest bodies of water that are not oceans. And some of these bodies of water would be kind of part of oceans. So some of these are kind of, you could make an argument one way or the other. But number 6 is definitely the largest non-ocean. It is borders on the western tip of India, and then the borders Pakistan and Iran.
Mediterranean.
Arabian. Okay, and also, it's all about not being ignorant. Don't say Arab. That just is so it makes you sound like you're from Arkansas and you're married to your sister. So say Arab, like air that's you breathe, and rib like what's right here. Not Arab, it's Arab. So Arabian. Okay, number 7 is a body of water that is to the south of the most populated country in the world.
Carmen Sea.
South China Sea.
South China Sea. Surprisingly, South China Sea is south of China.
Yay.
Okay. Number 8 is north of South America and south of Dominican Republic and Cuba. Yes. Caribbean or Caribbean. I don't know which is the official way to say it. I say Caribbean. Some people say Caribbean. I think I hear people say both.
The next one's gonna be Gulf of Mexico.
Okay, the next one is the division between Africa and Europe. Mediterranean. Good. Okay, number 10 and number 11 are kind of up to debate because one, you guys know it's right here, correct?
Yes.
That's the Gulf of Mexico. The Bering Sea is right here. Where it is up to debate. So sometimes it's labeled as being bigger than the Gulf of Mexico. Sometimes it's labeled being the Gulf of Mexico being number 10. I had to do quite a bit of research to get a definitive answer on it. I ended up going to a bunch of different websites and went with the consensus. Does anyone know what consensus means?
Thing most people agree on.
Yeah, it's like the majority answer, right? The majority answer is the Bering Sea is slightly larger than the Gulf of Mexico.
Nope, take that. Nope. I'm just giving that.
And one thing you guys will find out, and I'm sure you guys actually probably have found out, when you do internet research, some things have multiple viewpoints, right? And a lot of times you're searching for the consensus of an answer, right? Particularly in social studies, when you do some research, you might try to find an answer, and it might have two possible answers, and you end up having to look for the consensus, right? The majority opinion. That is something that is a lot of research in social studies. Okay, let's do the next one. Largest country by size, and they're probably done for the day. Okay, what's the biggest country in the world by size? Russia.
Duh.
He's done, Damien. He's done.
Okay, you guys probably won't get the top 5 in exact order, but you probably are able to label the top 5 really quickly. You might not get them in the right order, but okay, I heard Canada, I heard China, United States,
Brazil.
and Brazil. Those 4 are all in the top 5. Now, this is where you need to look at your map and try to figure out which is next. What's the second biggest country?
China. Russia, China,
Brazil.
Russia, China, Brazil,
Canada.
Canada, United States.
Canada.
It's actually Canada. It's number 2.
China.
United
States. It would be
Number 3 and number 4.
China's bigger.
China.
Number 3 and number 4 are very, very, very close.
China.
Looking at your map, you got the United States, Brazil, and China. Which of those 3 left look the biggest?
China.
China. It is China. What do you think's number 4? Which is about?
Brazil.
USA.
The United
Brazil.
States.
I think Brazil.
Brazil.
What?
What?
Bro, you're cheating.
So, the United States and China are very, very similar in size. Brazil is slightly smaller than those 2.
Next one's probably.
Okay. The next one used to be a penal colony. That's a prison colony for the British.
Australia.
Australia.
Oh, who's laughing now?
You guys don't know what a penal colony is? That is in the 17 and 1800s, early 1800s, the British Empire they're the most powerful country, right? And they had they had too many people in their country and not enough prisons for all the criminals. So they decided, hey, we can just we have a bunch of boats. So they shipped off their criminals to Australia and said, hey, have at it. And so if you got convicted of a crime, you were sometimes taken to Australia. And obviously, were you going to get taken back to Britain? Nope. This was the 1800s. So you're like, sorry. So you can kind of understand why the Australians are kind of a crazy people. All their ancestors were criminals. So.
Wow.
Okay, what's next?
Congo.
India. That's why
This country is made up.
Kazakhstan. Yeah.
The Himalayas border this country to the north.
Algeria. Argentina.
Okay. This next country is one that you would really like to immigrate to if you like to sleep in. Who likes to sleep in? Oh, you guys should all move to Argentina. They don't start school until about 10 or 11 in the morning.
Pack your bags.
Yeah, there you go. Dinner typically is about 10 or 11 at night, and there's still a lot of people out and about doing stuff after midnight in Argentina. It's like a completely different world. My one of my good friends, her cousin lived in Argentina, so she went there to vacation, and she's like, it's unbelievable. I mean, you don't start eating dinner until 10 or 11, and then you're doing stuff, and you go home, and it's after midnight every night. And she goes, but nothing is open, nothing's going on until 10 or 11 in the morning. She goes, I got up a couple times early, like at 8 in the morning, and walked around the city. And she goes, the only people out at 8 or 9 in the morning were Americans that were running or walking. They were like tourists. That was it. Everyone else was asleep. So who wants to go to Argentina now? And yes, that sounds good. Okay. Number 9 is a country that actually my dad has been to. Crazy.
Oh, Greenland. No, Virgo. Congo.
Algeria.
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan.
There it is.
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan.
Yeah, my dad worked for a company called Koch, which is in Kansas City, and they make meat packing plants. And that's like the whole company. That's what they design is meat packing plants all over the world. And Kazakhstan had a couple meat packing plants built from this company, and they stopped paying their bills. So my dad they couldn't find anyone in his company to go to Kazakhstan to get their money. So they sent my dad because no one else wanted to go. And it was like, my dad was not a fan of going there because he said it was so like a sketchy place to go to. He took a plane from a city in Europe, and I can't remember what it was. This was in the early 1990s. And he took this flight, and no one on the flight, just like 10 or 12 people, none of them spoke English. And he got there to the airport, and there was like one person spoke English, and that was the taxi driver. The guy looked like he was from the mafia. And my dad was super freaked out because they told him that you make sure the taxi driver's honest, because it was known in Kazakhstan that they would take Americans, like, I'll take you to your hotel, and then like drive off into the country and say, hey, you're lost, you don't know where to go, pay us extra money or we will leave you here. So he's like freaking out. He finally got to the hotel and everything was okay, but it's like everyone in there didn't trust because they all looked like they were trying to rob him. But he was like, you guys, I got off alive, so whatever. Like 5 or 6. Does anyone see the movie Borat? Like that's Kazakhstan. Okay, I couldn't show that in school, but no, I couldn't. I would get fired. Okay, what's the biggest country in Africa?
Algeria.
You're better pick it.
You're better pick
Yes.
Allergies.
What's crazy is 3 years ago, if we did this list, it would be different. Isn't that weird? 3 years ago, if you were in geography class and you did this, one country would be on here that would have been number 9, and now it's not even in the top 14. It's 15. That's Sudan. A couple of years ago, a new country, the newest country right now, is South Sudan came. So Sudan went from being number 9th biggest country in the world to like 15th. Okay, just missed out. It's the Congo and Greenland.
Is Greenland bigger than Congo?
No, it's 11th and then 12th. Okay, we'll stop there. The bell's about to ring.